So I feel like most of us have seen the top 25 quarterback list from 24/7. We're going to break it down a little bit only here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy Tuesday. I'm Brandon Olson. I feel like death. You can find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. You can find my written work with Whole Nine Sports or Giants Country of SI.com. Before getting into today's content, just to ask you like, subscribe, leave a comment, review, whatever it is. Let me know how I can make the show better. Also, let me know how I can make me better. I meant in terms of sickness, but talent-wise, sure, let's do that one too. But we're looking at this quarterback list from Brad Crawford of 24/7 Sports that came out yesterday morning, and then people started kind of talking about it. And everybody's got an opinion of it. I have an opinion of it as well. However, we'll talk about that. We got the whole show to talk about this. But 20th, our listed at 20th is Anthony Richardson, obviously our Florida Gators quarterback. And with these names, Brad Crawford usually put like name, their 2021 stats, and their 2022 outlook. So we have that for Anthony Richardson, and the stats obviously are very small sample size with Anthony Richardson. But the outlook that Brad Crawford of 24/7 put for Anthony Richardson was, quote unquote, it's time to buy stock in Richardson entering his first campaign as Florida's QB1 following the exit of Emory Jones to the transfer portal. He's a dynamic playmaker who will produce under Billy Napier's system if he stays healthy. And we can kind of break that one actual little excerpt down here because we can talk about how he is a dynamic playmaker. We all learned that. That's something that everybody who's watched Anthony Richardson play, even a drive at some point last season, they look at Anthony and they go, big arm, big dude, mobile, can make plays out of nothing. Yes, he's a very dynamic playmaker. If you watched him early on in the season, he was averaging something insane. I think it was like 28 yards per carry or something like that because he was just breaking off these massive long runs for touchdowns in the first few weeks. And it was just like, well, hi, Anthony. Bye, Anthony. He's gone. He's already off the field again. And we've got the Emory Jones thing that we've talked about where Emory kept taking spots, and Mordecai McDaniel, by the way, if you haven't seen his interview, I don't even know who did it. I just saw it on Twitter. But it was like a written interview, and they asked about Dan Mullen and Anthony Richardson, and they were like, we all wanted 15, which we've spoken about here before on the show, by the way, that the players wanted Anthony Richardson, and the coaching staff was just like, Emory, and stuck with that. But that's past, whatever. But we can break that down as he's a dynamic playmaker who will produce under Billy Napier's system. And then he says, if he stays healthy. That's kind of been the question mark with Anthony Richardson. Yes, last year he got he had a hamstring injury for a brief period of time, and then Mordecai McDaniel even touched on that in the interview where he was just like, he was doing backflips on the sideline, like he was healthy enough to play, which is duh. Which is why we saw the videos of him doing backflips, and we were just like, why is he not active? Like, yeah, it's different getting hit and doing backflips, but like, if you can do backflips, you're good to play football. It's as simple as that. But also the if he stays healthy thing, because that's a hamstring injury we're talking about. He also had a knee injury, which did keep him out for the remainder of the season. And he did get a surgery on, which apparently is a knee injury that had been dealing with since high school and had been hurting him since high school. And that's something that he's been working through this entire time. But if he stays healthy is a big question mark with Anthony Richardson. I'm not going to say he's injury prone, but he's had his fair share of injuries over a short period of time. And I'm specifying over a short period of time because sometimes, if you've never been injured, sometimes you get injured and you rush back a little early, and maybe that's what happened with him, and that's why he kept getting the injury. But again, we've been saying since high school, or you just get a bad string of luck with things with injuries, and that happens as well. So I'm not going to say he's injury prone. I will say though that he's had his fair share of injuries that he's had to deal with. But I agree with Brad Crawford. I think it is time to buy stock in Richardson. As he said, entering his first campaign as Florida's QB1. I think that everybody should do that. I think that when you're looking at a college player, you go, well, he's got an insane ceiling, and we've kind of seen him put some stuff together. So why not just try to match everything together and just bang on that upside? And that's essentially what we're doing with Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson was also eighth out of all SEC quarterbacks behind in order from highest ranked to lowest ranked. Alabama's Bryce Young, Arkansas's KJ Jefferson, Tennessee's Hendon Hooker, South Carolina's Spencer Rattler, which is still weird. Like I always forget that. Mississippi State's Will Rogers, Kentucky's Will Levis, and Ole Miss's Jackson Dart. I am not going to tear into this here, but I will say I am torn on the list in general because, and I know this guy's not an SEC quarterback that I'm about to talk about, but I'm torn on the list in general because I've been critical of guys like Anthony Richardson, like Will Levis, like Spencer Rattler, and there are QBs on the list where I'm like, well, player X shouldn't be this high or player X shouldn't be this low. But the only stance that I will firmly land on this top 25 list is Quinn Ewers, the guy who went to Ohio State and transferred to Texas and hasn't played a snap in college football, should not be ranked at all, let alone being ranked as the number 18 quarterback in college football. This man has not touched a field during a game, and he's number 18, and that is just ridiculous. That is absurd to do. If you're ranking every college quarterback, sure, you could put him somewhere on the list. But if you're going, these are the top 25 college quarterbacks, you should not put a guy that hasn't touched the field ever on this list. If he was injured in 2021 and didn't play, but he played in 2020, that's fine. Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma, formerly of UCF, is on the list, and he was dealing with injuries, but he's here now. Like he's available on the list. He's available to play. It makes no sense to have someone who's never played on this list. That's just absurd. We're about to take a look at who the Florida Gators will play that are on this list this season. But first, a quick word from BetOnline because win total numbers are out, which we'll probably look into tomorrow for the Florida Gators. I know the line. You guys can know the line. It is Florida 6.5. So if you think Florida can win those 7 games, which you should think they can win those 7 games, then you can bet on betonline.net that they will. Betonline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports information. I've been using BetOnline for years. I use it not just for football, not just for basketball, not just for baseball, soccer. I will admit that I have used it for darts before and then table tennis and a whole bunch of other things, normal tennis. It's fun to do, man. It helps me bet all day. I can just throw something down there real quick. Head to website today or use your mobile device to learn all about the trends and action. Check out Bet Online. It's where the game starts. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Now we're gonna take a quick look at this, and by quick I mean this segment is going to be the look of where do 2022 Florida Gators opponents rank on this list? Because again, I mean this is a list where we've got our guys over here, and it's like, well, uh, Anthony Richardson's number 20. We are playing a solid schedule this year, and there are kind of a surprising number of players here. 8 of the 12 games that the Florida Gators play this year will feature a quarterback either on the list or in the just missed the cut section that's under the list. So, I mean, 75% of your game is facing an arguably top just for the people that are just missed the cut, we'll say top 30. So 8 out of 12 games, 75% of your games featuring a quarterback that are in the just missed the cut or in the top 25, so top 30 section. Um, that's kind of a lot, which is really fun. And this defense is going to have their hands full with all the quarterback talent that they're facing. I will also say that I don't agree with all of these rankings or even most of them. I'll say, um, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about where the top 25 guys are. We're not talking about my top 25. But I mean, Florida is going in order of schedule. So who Florida plays earliest. So Florida starts the year with Utah, who has the number 13 quarterback in Cameron Rising, which is also really fun to talk about because last week and this past weekend at a radio in Utah, and we asked this question, we talked about it. And it was who has the better quarterback? Is it Utah or is it Florida? And everybody can say, well, Anthony Richardson's got this insane ceiling. If you're building a franchise, you want a guy like Anthony Richardson, and you can argue that. But if you're looking at what we've seen, especially consistency wise, it's Cam Rising right now. And here he is as number 13, whereas Anthony Richardson is number 20 on the list. So in this case, they win. They win the quarterback ranking battle, I guess. So Utah has Cameron Rising. Number 15, just 2 spots below Cameron Rising, is Kentucky's Will Levis, who is on this list. And I'll say this as far as the Kentucky game goes. And we're going to talk about this in about a month from today, pretty much. We're going to get into just a game by game breakdown, early game by game breakdown of the season. But I will talk about this when we get to Kentucky's game. Will Levis and Kentucky ran a lot of one read kind of things. And I think that Patrick Toney's defense is very well equipped to stop that. But also, Will Levis didn't have a good game when they played Florida. That's just as simple as that. Will Levis did not play a good game against Florida. That was their defense, their run game. So Will Levis being 15, I ain't sold on him. I'll say that. I ain't sold on Will Levis being a top 15 quarterback in college football right now. So, yeah, I hate that one, but that is what it is. Number 6, Tennessee's Hendon Hooker. Oh, we're gonna talk about that one next segment. Don't worry, but yeah. Then honorable mention, LSU here. So this one's weird because LSU has 2 guys that are starting quarterback battle in Miles Brennan and Jaden Daniels. I think they both are not good. I'll say that. But LSU's Miles Brennan is here as the honorable mention, and he may or may not be their starting quarterback this season. So that's interesting to have him on this list and see him there. But I'm not going to kill you for it. Honorable mention Georgia's Stetson Bennett, on the other hand. That's yikes. Because like he's not even a guy who's been like a star college quarterback where we watch him and we go, yeah, he's a good college quarterback, but is he ever going to be an NFL guy? Like that's not even the conversation people have with Stetson Bennett. The conversation people have with Stetson Bennett is nothing. Like people are pretty much unanimously agreeing that he's not an NFL guy. Not saying he can't be a backup, but like you're probably not going to draft that guy, right? But I think we could say that safely. But then again, Jake Fromm got drafted, so who even knows? But Stetson Bennett, yikes. Honorable mention again is Texas A&M's Max Johnson, who used to be an LSU Tiger, and then he transferred to A&M now. So he is on the honorable mention list as well. So 3 straight honorable mentions on the Gators schedule. And then the last player from this top 25 list that is on the Florida Gators schedule is South Carolina's Spencer Rattler, who I will say I think 8's a solid range for him. Like I know that there are a lot of people who are still kind of just dunking on him for getting benched last season, but like he got benched not playing poorly at all. Like he really was not playing bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. I think it was just the hype got ahead of him. Um, and he's going to help South Carolina a lot. Like he's going to be one of those guys where he elevates the play of his teammates, and that's going to be Spencer Rattler this year. So I like Rattler. Eight's fine with me. I'm not gonna dunk on it, but I will say, yeah, that's a bit of a gauntlet if you're looking at just this ranking and going, well, are these guys good? That's a dang good gauntlet. Florida starts the year with three top 15 quarterbacks according to this list in the first 4 weeks. So it's going to be kind of tough for a team where we're looking at this team and we're going that they're pretty they're still going to be trying to get things together by that point. Like I know that we could talk about this team being prepared and doing all these things, but there is no way to truly simulate what it's like to be playing a regular season game. Um, they're probably still going to be gelling early on in the season. So we'll see what happens there. But again, I'm not super stressed about some of the matchups because I don't feel the same way about some of these guys, so I'll leave it at that. But we're about to look at just some miscellaneous things for this list. The biggest non-Quinn Ewers disagreement, um, and where Miami's quarterback is. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. To wrap up today's show, we are talking about the final part of this list, which first up is the biggest non Quinn Ewers disagreement because again, like I said earlier in the first segment, having a guy who's never played college football listed at number 18 kind of immediately hurts the credibility of the list. I'll say, like, not attacking not attacking the credibility of 24/7 or of Brad Crawford, but the list kind of loses its weight a little bit when you go, who's a top 18 quarterback in the nation? This guy's never played. Uh, yeah, that's just silly to me. But the biggest non-Quinn Ewers disagreement that I have on the list is number 6, who I just spoke about last segment, and I mentioned him in the first segment. Tennessee's Hendon Hooker, and that's just like it's one of those things where we were talking about Stetson Bennett, and I was saying, Stetson Bennett is one of those guys where he's not even like a great college quarterback who you don't think is going to make the NFL. I think Hendon Hooker is a great college quarterback. Maybe I don't even want to say great. I want to say good college quarterback. I don't know what he'll be in the NFL, but I will say that I don't think he's talented enough to be the guy, or at least last year he wasn't talented enough to be the guy for me. We looked at Tennessee last year, and they could put up numbers. They could do a few things there, but I feel like more of the production is scheme and just going up tempo in terms of having the volume, having the opportunities to make those plays where, yes, eventually you're going to make them more than anything else. So I'm not super bought in on Hendon Hooker. I'm not like all the way out, but I don't think he's a top 6 quarterback in the country. He's a top 6 quarterback in the SEC, sure. I would say so, I would have Anthony Richardson behind Bryce Young, behind Spencer Rattler, behind KJ Jefferson. I wouldn't have him behind Hendon Hooker. I don't Hendon Hooker, and I get it. It's hard to gauge Anthony Richardson just because of sample size, but at the same time, you can't make that argument on this list when you have Quinn Ewers there. So you're just that's why I'm like, it makes no sense to be like, oh, yeah, like Hendon Hooker is above Anthony Richardson. A few other guys are above Anthony Richardson, but like, a sample size, because we can't even make that argument because he's got a guy on here who's never played college football before. So, wow, yikes. But no, Hendon Hooker he's just a guy to me. He's not the guy; he's a guy to me. So that's where I fall with Hendon Hooker and with his placement on this list. Again, at top 6, way too high for me. Miami did make the list. Florida State didn't, but Miami did make the list. Tyler Van Dyke finished as number 10. So he is twice as high as Anthony Richardson. I would say twice as good, but he is significantly higher than Anthony Richardson. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes because I don't really have an issue with Tyler Van Dyke being that high. I think last year he wasn't prepped to be the starting quarterback, and then when he had to start, he did a phenomenal job at it. So I'm not gonna crush Tyler Van Dyke. I have no problem with Tyler Van Dyke's ranking or evaluation, whatever it is. but I am a bit interested to see how the changes that are happening to the offense will impact him directly and impact his, impact his production, impact his film, how much he's going to be relied upon to continue this Miami offense. Because you could look at Michigan from last year, and maybe it's going to be very similar to what Miami does this year. Maybe not, because we've got Josh Gaddis coming from Michigan to Miami to be the offensive coordinator. And again, he was the offensive coordinator for Michigan last year, so it's not like he's a quarterback coach getting upgraded. He's an OC last year. He called the plays last year, and then he's going to be doing it this year. So it's going to be interesting to see what the offense looks like, if it's going to look like Michigan from last year, if it's going to be that run heavy, ground and pound, but spread them out style, or if what we saw at Michigan last year was a result of going, we don't trust our quarterback. We need to run the ball. We need to run the ball. We need to do these tricky things and see what's going to happen there. Because, I mean, I don't know Josh Gaddis, what he's going to do. I know that he's got a great resume with him. So I'm very interested to see how he's going to handle Tyler Van Dyke and how he's going to develop Tyler Van Dyke, and to see what really happens with him in terms of creating an offense that is catered to Tyler Van Dyke's needs. I'm curious to see where he winds up at, if we look back at this list at the end of the year and we go, well, Tyler Van Dyke played exceptionally well, or Tyler Van Dyke dropped off production wise, at least because of the offense, or whatever it might be, or if he was asked to shoulder the load more. So I'm curious to see what's going on with that. I'm very interested to see what's going on with that. It's kind of the same argument people have with Anthony Richardson, where they go, well, Florida's going to run the ball. He's not going to be as productive. And we don't know that. Billy Napier had Levi Lewis, who wasn't that great of a passer. So maybe that he is Anthony Richardson now. He's like, hey, we got a much bigger arm. We're going to let that thing fly. So things could change with this coaching staff. And I'm very curious to see how we look back at this list, because it's been going around a lot with a lot of opinions. So I'm curious to see how we look back at this list and kind of evaluate what this preseason ranking was. Thanks for making the Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more on your Florida Gators. Now make your second listen Locked On SEC, hosted by Chris Gordy of Sports 790. Gordy is one of the best in sports media. Great interviews, always with the latest headlines, storylines. He brings people on to trash talk every now and then. It's awesome. Have a blast. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olson. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find my written work with Whole Nine Sports and Giants Country of SI.com. And I will see you all tomorrow.